In recent years, China has made grandiose claims in the military domain, especially boasting significant breakthroughs in stealth drone technology. However, various indications suggest that the CCP's actual progress in this field is far from what their propaganda portrays. On Changxing Island, under the bright sunlight, a comical scene unfolds quietly. Two models of the so-called stealth GJ-11 drones, essentially plastic toys, stand on a rudimentary test field. Just a mile away, the massive hull of the Type 076 amphibious ship is slowly taking shape in the dock. Some have made a big deal out of this, claiming that China plans to launch the GJ-11 from the Type 076, causing quite a stir. The intention behind the speculation is clear: to sway opinions and exaggerate the strength of China's stealth drones. China already has aircraft carriers and amphibious ships, so why wouldn't they just test the GJ-11 in a carrier-based environment directly? Why do they have to stir up the internet? The answer is obvious. China is actually lagging in carrier-based stealth drone technology. Meanwhile, the US Navy already landed the unmanned combat drone X-47B on the USS George H.W. Bush 11 years ago. So what kind of drone is the GJ-11 anyway? Based on basic parameters, it is similar to a fighter jet, adopting a flying wing layout similar to China's Rainbow 5 drone, mainly used for ground attacks, reconnaissance, and deploying decoys. The biggest selling point of the GJ-11 is its so-called stealth capability. However, it is surprising that no credible radar cross-section, RCS, data has been officially released. Some Chinese media platforms have speculated without any basis that the RCS of the GJ-11 ranges between 0.01 to 0.1 square meters. Even if this data is accurate, there is nothing to boast about. The GJ-11 is 5 meters shorter in length, but similar in width to the F-35, yet its supposed 0.01 square meter RCS is an order of magnitude larger than the F-35's 0.005 square meter RCS. Not to mention the ultra-low 0.0001 square meter RCS of the US military's F-22 and B-2 bombers, highlighting a significant gap in stealth capabilities. Facing skepticism about the GJ-11's stealth capabilities, some Chinese media platforms argue that simply adopting a flying wing layout is sufficient for stealth, and with the addition of stealth coatings, the performance is even better. If this were true, China's stealth bombers should have already been deployed, but they remain unseen. This clearly indicates that China's stealth coatings are far from effective. During the Sino-Indian border dispute, two J-20 fighter jets, which are claimed to have stealth capabilities, were flying near the China-India border. However, they were easily tracked by India's Su-30MKI, showing that the stealth coating was hardly effective. The GJ-11 drone design appears to deliberately mimic the US B-21 stealth bomber. However, its length is only half that of the B-21, and its width is only a third. It is evident that China is trying to reduce the RCS by downsizing, aiming to achieve stealth effects. Speaking of stealth capabilities, let's look at the US's X-47B. This aircraft, like the GJ-11, adopts a flying wing layout and is only slightly longer and wider. Yet the X-47B is harder to detect by radar than the B-2. Why didn't the US continue its development? A reasonable guess is that the US military feared China would copy the design, so they classified the related technology into more secretive projects. After all, the current US stealth aircraft are more than sufficient to counter the CCP, so there's no need to risk giving the adversary a chance to copy. From various indications, the CCP's strength in the field of stealth drones is significantly lagging behind the US military. On the battlefield, the GJ-11 is likely to be a paper tiger, claiming to be stealthy but struggling in reality. The CCP is also boasting that the GJ-11 drone can passively detect various stealth targets like stealth fighters, stealth bombers, and even surface vessels while in radar silence mode. They say its operational radius far exceeds that of early warning aircraft, significantly enhancing the situational awareness of carrier groups. However, we should take such claims about China's military equipment detection capabilities with a grain of salt. The performance of modern detection equipment largely depends on the level of chips and other electronic components, areas where China has long been constrained and struggling. The chips used by the Chinese military may be adequate on a macro level, but they reveal significant weaknesses in fine detection tasks. Therefore, whenever we hear the CCP claim they can detect targets at a certain distance, we should probably have that distance to get closer to the truth. In reality, during actual confrontations, Chinese equipment often fails to detect the opponent before being detected itself. So why do they claim on the internet that the Chinese military can detect the opponent first? It's simply to distract their opponents from the fact that they can't. Adding to the CCP's embarrassment is that their much boasted data link system has long been a force of U.S. military research. Last year, a senior official from the U.S. Pacific Command publicly expressed interest in the vulnerabilities of the CCP's data link system and wanted to explore how to disrupt their data transmission. With such remarks, it would be no surprise to find researchers work tirelessly to tackle this issue. A system targeted by the U.S. military can hardly be expected to perform well in actual combat. One must be incredibly naive to genuinely believe China can surpass the U.S. in the stealth field. China may have the GJ-11, but that's likely the best they can achieve. Moreover, examining the design of the GJ-11 reveals it borrows not just from the B-21, but also from the U.S. drones X-47B and the RQ-170. Embarrassingly, the RQ-170 was introduced as far back as 2007. Ultimately, the CCP is attempting to deceive U.S. radar systems with a small flying wing drone coated in stealth paint, thinking if the radar struggles to detect it, the U.S. radar will too. But they forgot the strength of the U.S. military is not something they can easily gauge. During Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan in 2022, the U.S. deployed the Growler electronic warfare aircraft. Despite claims its radar performance was inferior to China's J-16D electronic warfare aircraft, it easily maintained surveillance and suppression of the J-16D in actual confrontation. On July 30th of the same year, 3 Chinese roll-on, roll-off ships mysteriously deviated from their course, with industry insiders pointing to possible U.S. electromagnetic interference. U.S. military insiders revealed that just one Aegis ship's electromagnetic interference could affect the entire global electromagnetic environment. Confronted with such a significant technological gap, shouldn't the CCP reassess its position? The CCP shamelessly claimed the GJ-11 is the world's first operational stealth attack drone and possibly the first stealth loyal wingman. However, the US X-47B had its first flight in 2011, while the GJ-11 debuted at the 2019 parade, a full 8 years behind. As for the title of the world's first stealth loyal wingman, the GJ-11 is even less qualified. Looking back in history, the United States Loyal Wingman Project was a real pioneer in this field. The concept was proposed by the US military in 2015, and Boeing's prototype for the Royal Australian Air Force successfully flew on February 27, 2020. In contrast, calling the GJ-11 a stealth loyal wingman is merely wishful thinking by some military analysts. This behavior not only misleads domestic citizens, giving them a false perception of national military strength, but also deceives international opinion. In today's highly data-driven era, such clumsy tactics only serve to further erode the CCP's credibility, making it a laughingstock on the global stage. The fundamental reason why the CCP is making a big deal about deploying the GJ-11 drones on carriers is that their existing early warning aircraft are unsatisfactory. They hope the GJ-11's supposed stealth and long-range capabilities can compensate for the deficiencies in detection range and stealth of their early warning aircraft. Ideally, a carrier group equipped with a GJ-11 should have missile targeting ranges of at least 400 kilometers, with the drones detecting targets at the forefront and relaying information back to the mothership. At first glance, this plan seems attractive. With drones, China's carriers could strike from a greater distance and gain a stealth advantage. However, this seemingly simple plan is actually fraught with difficulties in practice. Recently, China Central Television, CCTV, aired a 3D animation of the GJ-11 drone taking off and landing on the Type 075 amphibious ship, sparking widespread speculation. Observers are questioning if the GJ-11 has indeed been in service for some time and China has its own carriers. Why not film a real takeoff and landing instead of producing a virtual animation? This raises doubts about the PLA's ability to manage the challenges of autonomous drone landings amid the rough seas and the rolling deck of a carrier. In reality, this animation might highlight the CCP's struggle to achieve actual at-sea takeoff and landing for the GJ-11. Despite their heavy promotion, they haven't provided a real demonstration video, instead using animation to cover up the truth. Landing a drone on an aircraft carrier is much more complicated than an animation suggests. It requires a long detection range, stable and reliable data transmission, and the drone itself must adapt to the carrier's complex environment and land safely on the deck. This demands very high standards for the drone's design and flight control systems. First, the GJ-11 is similar in size to active fighter jets, making takeoff and landing on a narrow deck extremely challenging. The rough seas and the deck's pitching and rolling further complicate precise control of the drone's flight and landing timing. The drone must have exceptional environmental adaptability and flight control precision to achieve safe takeoff and landing under these conditions. Secondly, because of the unique environment on an aircraft carrier, a drone can't just rely on satellite navigation for landing. It needs to maintain real-time data link communication with the mothership and use precise relative positioning systems to accurately predict the mothership's movements, autonomously plan its flight path, and determine the best time to land. This demands high levels of perception, decision-making, and control from the drone, and also tests the coordination between the drone and the mothership. Lastly, in a complex electromagnetic environment, the drone must have reliable anti-jamming capabilities to ensure stable communication with the mothership's data link under any circumstances. If the data link is interrupted, the drone would lose all guidance from the mothership, leading to potentially disastrous consequences. The U.S. Navy successfully landed the X-47B drone on the arresting cables of the USS George H.W. Bush on July 10, 2013. At that time, artificial intelligence technology was not widely applied. The U.S. military relied on traditional control algorithms and extensive flight test data to achieve this feat. The success of the X-47B represents a culmination of U.S. advancements in control theory and systems engineering, reflecting years of research and development. With the rapid development of artificial intelligence technology, drones are becoming increasingly capable in terms of perception, decision-making, and control. Advanced deep learning and reinforcement learning algorithms allow drones to learn autonomously from vast amounts of flight data. This helps them to continually optimize control strategies to adapt to the ever-changing carrier environment, thereby offers new solutions to the challenging problem of maritime takeoff and landing. However, the CCP struggles to make significant progress in key technologies like AI chips and algorithms due to the US technology blockades. Under such circumstances, it is unlikely that China can quickly catch up with the US's leading advantage in carrier-based drone technology. At the end of last year, an interesting discovery was made. Someone spotted on Google Earth that in December 2022, the GJ-11 drone was undergoing radar cross-section measurements at an airport in Gaobeidian, Hebei province. However, military observers quickly pointed out that this test was too close to urban areas where background clutter from various electronic devices and buildings would severely interfere with the measurements. The weak radar reflections from the GJ-11 could easily be drowned out by this clutter. Signals that could have been detected in a cleaner environment might go undetected here. As a result, the measured radar cross-section could be much smaller than the actual value, making the GJ-11 appear more stealthy than it really is. Choosing such a noisy environment for testing seems like a deliberate attempt to manipulate the data and create an impressive appearance. It appears that the CCP has chosen to play with numbers rather than pursue genuine military technological strength. Satellite images show that the GJ-11 drone has undergone multiple ground tests over the past year, with its footprint spanning facilities in Changxing Island and Wuhan, which house aircraft carrier mock-ups. Testing on land-based carrier models can simulate certain design parameters to some extent, but it cannot replicate the turbulent waves of the open sea, the rolling resistance of a deck, or the interference of sea winds. Therefore, conclusions drawn from land-based model tests are questionable in terms of reliability and applicability. While Chinese media heavily hyped the GJ-11 drone's grand deployment on the Type 076 assault ship, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Navy announced it has converted a merchant ship, Shahi Madavi, into a fully functional drone carrier. Previously, a regular container ship flying the Iranian flag, It is now capable of carrying helicopters and drones to sea. This is a strong contrast to the CCP's boastful claims. The US is even more dismissive of the CCP's efforts. The AI system Vista has been installed on an F-16 fighter jet, and US Air Force Secretary Frank Kendall stated that this AI, still in training, can already decide when to fire on its own. By 2028, the US Air Force plans to deploy 1,000 of such unmanned combat aircraft. The US Air Force is clearly upping its game. AI can solve complex problems that traditional computers couldn't handle, using advanced mathematical formulas in supercomputers. When training AI for flight, the US sets up simulated combat scenarios, allowing the AI to control the plane for a few minutes, then shutting down the system to review areas needing improvement. If the AI system veers off course, humans can take back control. This process poses minimal risk as humans are still training AI on how to engage in combat. China's progress in the drone field, however, is fraught with difficulties. In August last year, a flood inundated Zhuzhou Flight School, a crucial base for developing AI-driven J-7 drones similar to those used by the US military. The flood not only destroyed numerous drones, but also washed away valuable flight data and algorithm models. This catastrophic event will undoubtedly set back China's research in this area by several years. In the field of AI drones, the gap between China and the US is growing rapidly. The US, with its strong lead in AI chips, algorithms, and systems engineering, is speeding up the arrival of the unmanned combat era. While China is not far behind in terms of propaganda, it faces significant challenges in chip technology and high-end algorithms, which are crucial and where it is heavily constrained. In this military technological revolution, the CCP is likely to be left far behind by the US. The story of the GJ-11 drone is a perfect example of the CCP's military propaganda. Impressive on the surface, but lacking substance. They might think that showing models and animations will fool people. But in such an information-rich world today, this kind of paper tiger propaganda is just more likely to be exposed. Let's see what tricks the CCP comes up with next. Will they suddenly announce that the GJ-11 has successfully taken off and landed on an aircraft carrier? Or maybe they'll claim it can fight in space. After all, bragging doesn't cost anything, so we can just sit back and watch. Let's wait and see if they can actually deliver real results.